For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christopher Campbell. I oversee the Burlington Democratic Town Committee. Welcome to our conversation with candidates. So I just want to kind of outline how this event is going to go. In the chat, I put kind of a timeline of events. We are recording this as BCAT is planning on running this later on, as well as we'll be able to give this to campaigns if they wish to use it for any type of social content. But really, this is a one-to-one conversation with myself as the moderator and the candidates. Each candidate is going to have 10 minutes. They'll have a 1 minute for an opener, 7 minutes for questions, and then 2 minutes for a closing statement. Really give candidates a really good opportunity to field questions that came from people who may or may not normally have an opportunity to ask questions throughout our community or aren't always as engaged as some of us here. Each candidate will get the same questions. The hope is that we'll have the same amount of questions, but depending on candidates' answers will depend on the amount of questions that we get through. I would ask that when we do have these conversations that we can stay muted. Candidates are welcome to put in the chat more information about their campaigns, talking about how to get involved. But I think we all agree the most important thing here is that we all get out and vote. Voting is currently open. You can go to Town Hall and do absentee voting, or you can vote next Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that is going to be the most crucial thing in any of these elections. We have two seats that are currently contested. We have the school committee and then the Board of Health. And so we're going to have the school committee go first, and then after that will be the Board of Health. And it's going to go in order. Candidates going to go in order as they appear on the ballot. So I wanted to make it fair as a way that they have already been predetermined there. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll try our best to be able to possibly answer them, but really it's a conversation for you to just get to know a little bit more about our candidates after their BCAT conversation, debate that they've had. And if you missed it, there was an IEB conversation as well. Each of these candidates are approachable. If you have any additional questions, please make sure that you follow up with them. Your vote matters. And I know each and every one of them who are taking the time now to be with you, want to answer any additional questions you have and earn your vote. So thank you on behalf of the Burlington Democratic Town Committee for everyone for being here for this opportunity to have this conversation. And I'm going to turn it over to our esteemed State Representative Ken Gordon to give us a welcome.
Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you very much to everybody from the DTC. And thank you everybody who is running for office. And here's what I want to tell you is, first of all, thank you for participating and for organizing this event today, because these are really important events. Visibility is important and outreach is important in a campaign. But what I always enjoyed the most was an opportunity to talk about the issues with the voters so that people could choose between some these races, some very, very good candidates. And these choices that voters are being asked to make are difficult ones. So to have that platform to be able to talk about your campaigns is very important. And so thank you for providing that platform, and thank you for participating in the opportunity to share that information. Running for office on any level, especially a local level, is hard to do. And I thank all of you who are doing it, and you realize, those of you who are doing it, what I'm saying, it's the pressure is immense. And the opportunity is immense, but with it, it really takes something to put yourself into that circle where you will receive criticism and you will receive praise, probably in an inordinate amount of both from time to time. But you're willing to do that, and I do appreciate those of you who are willing to step up. It's easier to criticize. It's easier to knock down than it is to build, but you're builders. You're putting something together, and no matter what happens as to the outcome of this campaign, that's what you've all done. You know, to quote Woody Allen, 90% of success is showing up. Well, that's important. The 90%, the 10 is these campaigns, and then once you're elected, to successfully, as I know all of you will be able to do, represent the people of Burlington. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for putting this on. And I think that's my 5 minutes. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you, State Rep. I don't see Amy here. So I just wanted to check before. Christine, we may just skip right to you if I don't see Amy. So I'm going to give it 30 more seconds. And if not, then I'm going to skip it over straight to you. And yeah, so just as a reminder, so this is being recorded. BCAT wanted us to record this so that we may be able to post it for them, but also we can give it to campaigns if they would like to use it for whatever reason after this. Okay.
Chris, if you could just remind people that write-in candidates can be done at the polls, that would be good. And maybe we can send something out from Amy to the people who were at this event so that they will know about write-in voting.
Yep, perfect. So we're gonna speed things up just a little bit. I have the pleasure of introducing Christine Monaco, who's running for school committee. So Christine, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Okay, hello everybody, and thank you to the Democratic Town Committee for hosting this. For those of you who don't know me, I have degrees in math and education and an MBA from Northeastern University. My MBA is from. I worked in our school system for over a decade. When I ran for school committee, I knew the schools very well. Before that, I was a Navy wife. My husband flew in jets off aircraft carriers. I lived in 4 countries and 3 states. I became active in our community in my mid-20s, and I never stopped. I served on the Early Recycling Committee, Disability Access, Historical Commission, the Rec Commission, CPAC, and more. My 4 children went through the Burlington schools, and I'm here in town raising 15 children among them. Currently, I have 2 at the high school, 2 at the middle school, 2 at Fox Hill, 2 at Pine Glen, no, 1 at Pine Glen, and 2 more going to kindergarten next year, 1 to Pine Glen and 1 to Fox Hill. Serving on the school committee is an important position. We oversee a huge budget, create policy that affects every student, and work closely with the town side of government. Experience matters on this committee. So thank you all for being here, and please say one of your 2 votes for school committee for me next Saturday, April 9th, when you go to the polls. Thank you.
The first question, Christine, what has impressed you most about what Burlington teachers and staff had done over the past 2 years facing the COVID-19 pandemic, virtual, hybrid, and back to full in-person learning?
What has impressed me the most is the degree to which they have been able to keep learning on pace. I think the virtual academy was a great success. Those kids who went totally virtually did very well with it, except the social emotional piece that I don't think went so well for anybody, no matter what they chose. Hybrid was difficult because it was like going to school half time for the most part. But there were some teachers who welcomed the opportunity to live stream their classes. And to those particular teachers, I send a huge shout out. They did a wonderful job. It was extra effort and totally appreciated. Just making it through the last 2 years is a big deal. And we did it and we're on track. And I'm just thankful to everyone who took part.
Next question. Burlington Public Schools prides itself centering DEI in all that they do. How do you support this value and mission?
Well, I think that we all have to support diversity, equity, and inclusion because it exists. We have to do it. It's what's most important. We're all different, and that's great. We should all be different, and we should accept the fact that that's a good thing. I think the one caveat I have to this whole DEI program is that we have to be careful. We have to be inclusive. We have to reach out to everybody. I think there's a huge risk of division. If we go too quickly, too fast, everybody jump in the pool at the same time. I just want, as we approach all of these important and necessary differences that we have to deal with and have to accept, because that's the right thing to do, we have to do it carefully and be inclusive of those people who might not be so accepting of the efforts to the DEI.
Great. The role of the school committee is to have input and approve the Burlington Public Schools budget. Recently, the Burlington Public Schools saw such a budget overrun. The town meeting had to vote on and fund the extra overrun of the Burlington Public Schools. How would you ensure the budget deficit does not happen again? What safeguards input in the budget process would you enact to make sure that this does not happen again?
So when that happened, it was when one business administrator left and another came in. So one person created the budget, another person had to handle the budget and make sure everything went well. And I think the thing that maybe went wrong is there wasn't some overlap where the first person worked with the second person. So when all the stipends came in at the end of the year, they weren't expected. And it caused that plus some other things caused an issue. And the town meeting did give us the money. It was $750,000, and we very much appreciated that. So in an effort to repay that, last year, we returned to the town at the end of our budget year. We returned over $1 million to the town. And I think pretty much the town sees us as having squared up that debt. In the meantime, all of the policies surrounding finance were changed, updated. Everything is totally different from what it was, because we have a policy that says when you hire a new business administrator, you will update all the business policies. So we followed our policy and updated all the business policies and money policies.
Great. Thank you. Next question. We want our schools to be a positive learning environments for all students and families. We would hope that this is the fundamental premise for anyone wanting to be part of the Burlington Public Schools, and especially school committee members. That said, there are students and families who do not experience acceptance and safety in our schools in everyday activities. This is why many educators talk about the need for representation of all students and families in books and curriculum students encounter. Yet in many states and at many school committee meetings, pressure is mounting on being legislated to reduce or remove LGBTQ+ and or racially and ethnically diverse books and materials from libraries and classrooms. How would you vote if such a measure was asked of you as a school committee member?
I would vote against removing any of those things. We have, as I said in my earlier answer about equity, we have to be careful how we reach out and deal with these issues, but that doesn't mean we don't get to deal with them. You know, it's critically important to encompass all aspects of life, education and learning. So yeah, I'd vote no.
Great. When looking at the many building projects and or renovations facing the district, what environmentally sustainable projects and or long-term projects to ensure that these new schools and school projects would last, would you advocate for or look to incorporate into the building designs?
Well, I'm not an expert in that field, but we did hire one when we did the memorial school, and we wanted to qualify to be a green building. So there are all kinds of things with runoff and heat savings. I can't give you details on that, but I can tell you that we would hire someone to make sure that we had as green a school as possible.
Okay. And then what is one thing that you would hope to accomplish in the next 3 years?
In the next 3 years, there are a few things I would hope to accomplish, but quite a few things. One is to get those buildings under control, the new Fox Hill, and to keep Pine Glen in great shape, and then hopefully one day to renovate it. In between there, I think that the high school needs a ton of work. But I'd like to make this caveat, we have taken very good care of the high school in all of our buildings. So we don't have any building that is like, you shouldn't have school in it. We should. They're all in great shape, and we keep them that way, even though in the long term they need renovation. But educationally, I think we have a great program, and I would like to keep up with it, keep it going. And the special education area, there are two things I'd like to do. One is to bring in more training for more certified teachers in various reading programs at the elementary level, and to bring the neurodiversity program that we have into the high school so that high school students have a safe place to a group of people in a safe spot to be comfortable in the high school. I think that's lacking, and I would like to see it happen.
All right, so now it's time for your closing statement.
Okay. The school committee supported and secured funding for our own integrated preschool, new special education programs, full day kindergarten, the Sprouts program, before and after school care, and so much more. We have small class sizes. We have led the Commonwealth on expanding computer science instruction. We introduced one-to-one iPads and coding to every grade. We have award-winning robotics teams, renowned art and music departments, and the very best athletic teams. Our core academics are second to none. We work hard. Burlington testified before the Board of Higher Education to allow computer science to count as a math or a science class in Mass Core, as opposed to simply being an elective. That is now in effect. Burlington High School is very competitive with our graduates going on to the best of colleges and universities. Our dual enrollment program, internship program, advanced placement program, they're all outstanding. Our seniors can graduate with 15 college credits using dual enrollment. We have a wonderful, dedicated staff. We have a beautifully diverse community of families and students. We have soaring property values. Burlington is an awesome place to live. Right now, the school committee needs experience and consistency, along with educational and fiscal responsibility. I hope you will support my candidacy so that I can continue my work for all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. All right, next, Jeremy Brooks. You have 1 minute for your opening statement. Oh, you're on mute.
Sure did that, didn't I? Thank you, members of the Democratic Council, folks that took time to come out and hear us today. I grew up in Burlington, attended K through 12 in the Burlington school system, left Burlington to join the Air Force and retired after 24 years of service, moved back to the community that I grew up in and love, and I still answer the call to serve, this time at the community level. I believe my experience and energy are best utilized as a school committee member. This position would also provide me with a more prominent voice in shaping policy procedure that directly impact the education of all students in the system, not just my daughters. During my 24 years as an Air Force Special Warfare member, I have led small and large multi-service, multinational organizations that are both flat, agile, and hierarchical. And as an organizational leader, I have championed building and infrastructure installation projects. As an operations manager, I've had an instrumental role in providing for the daily needs of all personnel, forecasting, maintaining units, multi-million-dollar operations and maintenance budgets. Lastly, I have a proven project management track record of delivering projects on time and within budget. I'm comfortable managing all aspects of a project from inception to closeout, and my education includes a bachelor's in management technology, an associate's in information systems, a Security Plus certification, a professional management certification, and a business analytics certification.
Perfect. First question, what has impressed you most about what the Burlington teachers and staff have done over the past 2 years facing the COVID-19 pandemic, virtual, hybrid, and back to full in-person learning?
First off, I'd like to, just really give some accolades to teachers for pivoting and having the adaptability to, move to a virtual platform so quickly. Obviously, it had its speed bumps as it rolled out, but it was something no one planned for. So I think they handled that admirably. In the hybrid learning model, it was very good to see the teachers, and from my own personal experience, my daughter was in first grade at the time, having some educational challenges, and having the teachers reach out to me directly and not lose that communication aspect with the parents. And again, as we move back to full-time in-person learning, I think it was done in a safe manner that allowed all the students to come back in. We're having somewhat low transmission rates, so I think a lot of the measures put in place were effective. And again, I just can't say enough about the adaptability and how well the teacher performed and all the extra effort they put in.
Burlington Public Schools prides itself centering in DEI in all that they do. How do you support this value and mission?
So again, I spent 24 years in one of the most diverse organizations on the planet, the United States Air Force. It's something I believe in. It's something I think the program in this town can gain a lot of goodness from. I think to make it the most effective program we could have, again, I think I touched on this debate, you know, I'd like to see a mission statement, a vision statement, 1, 3, 5-year goals. Also too, I picked on Newton Public Schools in one of my virtual events and showed their DEI year in review that gave a very clear picture of initiatives that were being put in place. And then it broke it down to a very granular level at the grade level. So grade 1, 2, and 3, it was, we had these things, we introduced the curriculum, this is the training the teachers got. And I think that level of communication is really needed. Also to make it a more successful program, it's really a change management process. And Christine kind of touched on it. We got to unfreeze people's attitudes on it, really over communicate, get the people's buy-in, hear them, you know, for or against whatever their stance is, but again, make people feel heard. And then, you know, we take that input with us and then rely on Mr. Porch's expertise, right? That's why we hired him, because he's the guy that knows these things, and I would lean on him very heavily for, you know, policy recommendations, and look forward to like many, many in-depth conversations, you know, to enhance my own learning, because I know what I know, but there's a lot of things I don't know. And I think he could help me open up some of my blind spots.
The role of school committee is to have input and improve the Burlington Public Schools budget. Recently, the Burlington Public Schools saw such a budget overrun that town meeting had to approve the extra cost overruns in the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars. How would you ensure that a budget deficit does not happen again? What safeguards input to the budget process would you enact to make sure that this does not happen again?
So that's an easy one. I lead back on my project management experience for that one. So either at each school committee meeting or once a month, possibly once a quarter, depending on the, you know, the burn rate of what we're spending is. We know what we have for a budget. We know what the burn rate is. We can forecast where they're going to have an overrun. So if we monitor that closely, and then if we are out of tolerance within probably 5%, well, then that would be a decision point for the school committee. So once we get over that 5% above where our burn rate is, now we have to start looking at it and can focus our attention. And I think we put some very tight controls in our burn rate to, you know, manage that. And again, I think another thing we need to build into our budget is probably, again, another project management practice is having about a 2 to 3% reserve. So if you do start to have those cost overruns, you have some latitude to move money or adjust your spending and maybe not overrun and not get over your budget.
Great. We want our schools to be positive learning environments for all students. We would hope that this is a fundamental premise for anyone wanting to be part of the Burlington Public Schools, and especially the school committee. That said, there are students and families who do not experience acceptance and safety in our schools on any given day. This is why many educators talk about the need for representation of all students and families in the books and the curriculum students encounter. Yet in many states and at many school committee meetings, pressure is mounting or being legislated to reduce or remove LGBTQ+ and racially, ethnically diverse books and materials from libraries and classrooms. How would you vote if such a measure was asked of you as a school committee member?
So I wouldn't be inclined to vote in favor of that. Again, most of the curriculum and books that are in the library at this point have been vetted by the librarians. They go through a selection process. The librarians, you know, put in place catalogs of books that are age appropriate, comprehension appropriate. So I don't feel like it's a huge challenge here. If we're introducing books into the school, again, I think you have a little bit of an open platform. You let parents say their piece, and then based on that conversation is, you know, really how we vote for things. But again, I do believe all people and everyone needs representation. And I think that's, again, where I lean back on Mr. Porch's experience and go, hey, what is this certain piece of, you know, curriculum, or where does this book, what does this offer us? Like, how does this help us, you know, represent all the people in the school? And I think, again, I really lean on his expertise to not make the judgment, but really advise me heavily on it.
When looking at the many building projects and/or renovations facing the district, what environmentally sustainable projects and/or long-term longevity of the projects would you look forward to advocate for and/or incorporate it into the building designs?
Okay, so obviously sourcing energy saving materials. So your double, triple pane windows, or the windows that kind of like the glasses auto tint, inputting smart building controls like an industrial size Nest controller for the HVAC, putting the motion sensors for electricity, finding HVAC systems that are more energy efficient, things like that. If possible, possibly in the new school building, if it wasn't cost prohibitive, maybe pivot to a geothermal, at least explore those technologies because they're out there, they're sustainable, and they have the same life cycle as some of the other standard technologies we're really gunning towards now, but they don't have the environmental footprint of today's technology.
Great. And lastly, what is one thing you hope to accomplish in the next 3 years?
Great question. So number one, first and foremost, building projects. I can't stress that enough. I think I've been beating that drum pretty loudly. We need to get Fox Hill squared away. HVAC in the high school absolutely needs to get squared away. After that, a few things I'd like to do, and I spoke about this at the IAB, is institute an artificial intelligence and machine learning program into the school. So as teachers are teaching, they're getting real-time data on how students are doing and getting alerts to help people. And I think that helps us in the the district improvement plan for early identification for special needs, focusing counselors on what special needs they need to help their students with, and really make them be able to use their time more efficiently and provide the services in a much more efficient manner to get the learning student and then help that student over their challenges. Also, too, what I'd like to see, and I spoke about this at IB too, I'd like to get a tech writer on staff to start pulling in some of those grants. So we have shortfalls in special education, guidance counselors. We can fund some of that through grants until we can program for it properly in the budget after we get over these large challenges with the school committee, the building projects.
Now you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Okay. So as a school committee member, I know that my charge will be to set policy, advocate, and ensure proper and fiscally responsible funding is provided for the system and oversight of the administration. I believe that an elected official is my duty to address student and parent concerns and be a collaborative member with the community at large and other government entities that interface with the committee to foster enhanced and transparent communication. I have experience managing projects with acquisition values exceeding $300 million to deliver capabilities on time and on budget. Couple that with the experience working in the highest levels of government, answering to the Director of Special Programs at the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense. This experience demonstrates that I possess the knowledge, skills, and ability to serve on this committee. I have an extensive record serving the veteran community and volunteering with the Habitat for Humanity, Korean orphanages, and volunteering to assist Korean students, acting as a conversational English mentor. I would provide a fresh vision, bold new ideas for problem solving, valuable leadership, and planning expertise to address challenges within the system. Additionally, I seek to be not only a vocal advocate for concerns brought to the committee, but to foster community participation and interaction during committee meetings. At the same time, making all documentation and policy more accessible in a consolidated, well-organized location on the BPS website, truly bringing Burlington school system into the digital age. I humbly ask you for your consideration and your vote on April 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, I'd like to introduce Melissa. You have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for the Democrats for hosting this forum. Let me tell you more about myself. I graduated from Boston College with a degree in economics, and I also have an MBA from Bentley University. I'm currently a manager of product strategy at Athena Health, which is a technology company. And prior to that, I was a project manager for over 10 years. I'm on the town's transportation committee. I'm co-president of Adopt a Class 2034 and a fundraiser for Boy Scout Pack 105. My husband and I moved to Burlington to raise our family. We have 2 boys, a kindergartner at Fox Hill Elementary School and a preschooler at Mount Hope. Since I'm passionate about education, one of the reasons we chose to live in Burlington was its strong support for the schools. In my free time, you can find me skiing, biking, or hiking. As a parent of 2 future Burlington Public School graduates, I want to join the school committee to bring a fresh perspective and an eye to the future in policy decisions. I also promise fiscal accountability for your tax dollars.
Thank you. So what has impressed you most about what Burlington teachers and staff have done over the past 2 years facing the COVID-19 pandemic, virtual, hybrid, and back to full in-person learning?
Sure. The number one thing that impressed me, and I think Jeremy also mentioned it, but it's important, is the adaptability, right? The rules were changing minute by minute. The virus was changing minute by, what we knew about the virus was changing. I think our teachers and staff did a great job of working with what they had, what the town rules had been at the moment, and really caring for our kids. I think that's the second bit, is that everything that our teachers did and the staff was, the top priority was the students and the families. And I really, really appreciated that.
Burlington Public Schools prides itself centering DEI in all that they do. How would you support this value and mission?
Sure. I am a huge proponent of DEI for the past 6 years. Ever since I had my oldest son, I've been one of the presidents of an employee resource group at my company, which is basically an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I work very closely with Athena's executive director of diversity and inclusion. And so I really feel like I've been living those values for a long time, and I understand what it means to advocate for those whose voices are not the loudest, and for those needs of representation and inclusion. And I really, really look forward to bringing that passion onto the school committee and working with Mr. Porridge.
The role of the school committee is to have input and approve the Burlington Public Schools budget. Recently, the Burlington Public Schools saw such a budget overrun that town meeting had to financially support the Burlington Public Schools in the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. How would you ensure that such a budget deficit does not happen again? And what safeguards input would you have in the budget process or enact to make sure it didn't happen again?
Sure. The first thing I definitely want to see is making sure that we're using the most up-to-date and recent software technology. I know after that specific incident, we did move over to the town-wide software, and I think that that was a really important decision. And I want to make sure that we're utilizing all of those available checks and balances there. I think we need to continue to review and update our policies as things change in the district, as well as making sure we're holding the right people accountable and providing the right amount of oversight. I think those are two key things, is the oversight and the real checks and balances that we need to make sure we're utilizing going forward.
We want schools to be positive learning environments for all students and families. We would hope that this is a fundamental premise for anyone wanting to be part of the Burlington Public Schools, and especially the school committee. That said, there are students and families who do not experience acceptance and safety in our school on a daily basis. This is why many educators talk about the need for representation of all students and families in the books and curriculum students encounter. Yet in many states and at many school committee meetings, pressure is mounting or being legislated to reduce or remove LGBTQ+ and or racially and ethnically diverse books and materials from libraries and classrooms. How would you vote if such a measure was asked of you as a school committee member?
Sure, I would not be in favor of removing any books that a teacher chose for his or her classroom, or any librarian. I think, as I mentioned, I'm very supportive of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm willing to bet that out of our diversity audit, that there come some recommendations to increase representation in certain areas. And I think curriculum and literature are two really good areas that our kids are able to increase their awareness and their understanding of others who may not walk in their shoes.
When looking at the many building projects and or renovations facing the district, what environmentally sustainable projects would you advocate for and look to incorporate into the buildings and or designs?
Sure, I think the first one that comes to my mind is solar. I know we have some solar in the district already. We've had solar in our house for a long time, and it's been really beneficial. So I think that's especially in Massachusetts, there's a lot of support there. Otherwise, I would probably look to the MBSA to really help us understand what in any new school or any renovations would be best suited for, in terms of the sweet spot of environmental and financial responsibility, where we can even that out, and so that we can lower our maintenance costs, as well as keep our building costs reasonable.
And what is one thing that you hope to accomplish in the next 3 years?
Sure. The one big thing that I really hope to accomplish is to fully engage Burlington Public Schools in the Safe Routes to School program through Massachusetts, and it's also a federal program. I think I've talked about this before, but the Safe Routes to School is a program that basically provides free assistance in all of our transportation needs and planning. It helps increase alternate methods to school, so walking, biking, scooting. And also the more engaged our district is in that program, the more eligible we become for state funding to improve the infrastructure that we have, to increase bus quality, increase sidewalks, add crossing guards, all of those things. So over the next 3 years, hopefully even sooner than 3, I really hope to ensure that our district is able to fully engage in that program.
Great. Now you get 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Burlington has had great schools, but the challenges of post-COVID learning in a turbulent world require innovative and forward-looking planning. There are 3 roles of a school committee member: financial responsibility for our $69 million budget, setting policy, and hiring and supervising the superintendent. If the school committee provides appropriate oversight, sets sound policy, and supports the superintendent, then the systems work correctly. I want to ensure that the systems are working as they should to provide students and families with what they need, especially in the area of special education, so that students equitably get appropriate services. I want to join the school committee to start moving things forward and take action. I look forward to leveraging my private sector project management experience in project oversight, including major building activities that the district needs to undertake over the next decade. Having managed large budgets, I promise strict accountability for our district's budget. I have the expertise to guide the development of a strategy that will support the growing and changing needs of the community during a historically challenging era. My approach will be enriched by my day-to-day experiences as a current district parent who's familiar with the unique challenges that our children are facing today. As our students and teachers are constantly adapting to a rapidly changing world, I am ready, willing, and able to meet the challenges and support our teachers. I'm excited about the many opportunities that await on the school committee to help shape the district for our children's future. Please support me, Melissa Massardo, with one of your votes on April 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Melissa, Jeremy, and Christine, all 3, for stepping up, for putting their names forward, for being part of this debate for our school committee. So now we're going to shift to the Board of Health. So we have Ed Weiner, who's going to be first. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
There I was.
There you go.
I'm Dr. Ed Weiner, and for more than 30 years, I have had the privilege to serve the town of Burlington as a member and its current chairman of our Board of Health. With an undergraduate degree from Northeastern University, a master and a doctorate from Boston University, I am a clinical and biomedical scientist with extensive community public health experience. Under my leadership, the Board of Health has become a key agency within our town, providing safety and wellness to every citizen within Burlington. I have continuously worked to assure a safe environment, demand proper land use, and town development, including biotechnology, and strive to maintain a high quality of life for this community. I feel privileged to live in the town of Burlington and to give back by serving as a member and leader of our Board of Health.
Thank you. The first question: the pandemic has been tough on so many of our youngest residents, with sharp increase in mental health concerns, including depression, anxiety, and even suicide ideation, and just to name a few. In your capacity as a Board of Health member, how would you advocate for a unified mental health solution for our youngest residents, ensuring that different departments are not working in silos?
I think that I have a track record of bringing all departments together, and we have quite a few resources in that area. Not only do the Board of Health have resources and training in some of the programs around mental health, we've had programs in psychiatric emergencies, in suicide prevention. We have worked with the schools right through the pandemic. We continue to work with the schools on all aspects on how we could support the kids in our community. And last, we have a Burlington group within our town that specializes in mental health, specializes in these types of problems. And I think it's important that all groups within the community, all elected and appointed, need to come together to support our kids.
Thank you. Unfortunately, in today's political world, there is trusted science and opinion science. And as we have learned over the pandemic, science can change based on the new information. How do you evaluate which science to trust?
I think, first of all, it's clear that the Board of Health has become a resource for all of science, a resource for credible science. I have been on cable. Dr. Salzman has been on cable. Our director and all of our personnel have been on cable to talk about what is credible, what is real, what is false. I've been on social media many times to talk about some of the ridiculous things that people are saying throughout the country. What I believe is the Board of Health needs to continue to be that resource. We need to begin to put together a speakers bureau of people not only within the Board of Health, within the community, who are trusted to provide communication and science. So what I think we should do, I think we should keep talking, keep promoting, keep showing what we have, and keep being a resource for this community.
The Burlington water quality and the presence of PFAS in our water continues to be a great health concern for many Burlington families and residents. In your capacity as a Burlington Board of Health member, how would you address this issue of water quality?
I think it's very, very interesting situation here. The first is the Burlington Board of Health does not make the water. We don't test the water, and we don't certify the water in this community. That is a role of our select group. Per polyfluoroalkyl substances are more than 5,000 different chemicals. They're found in non-stick pans, food packaging, personal care products like eyeliner, sunscreen, fighter-firing foam, all of these things. The issue in town is it doesn't break down, and we have it in our water. 95% of everybody in this country, 95% everybody in the United States has PFAS in their bodies. It's been around for a very long time. The difference is we can measure it now. We once looked at parts per million, then parts per billion, now parts per trillion, and we can measure the fact that these substances, now on the verge of being banned, have been around for a very long time. So what have I done? Although I am not responsible for PFAS in our water, I am responsible for the health of this community. The Board of Health did something that was to call everybody together and to have a forum on PFAS. What to do? What do you have? Can you do if you have thyroid problems? If you have debilitating diseases? What if you're pregnant? And we brought everybody together. I brought everybody together as chairman to talk about these issues, what we can do. You know, we can use bottled water, but there are a lot of issues around bottled water. We don't know if there's even PFAS in bottled water. I think it's important that I and a Board of Health continue to bring these issues to the community and to keep talking about it, because we don't have a source of good water right now when it comes to PFAS. We will soon be connected to NWRA, but until then, we have to be careful, and we need to keep talking about it.
Thank you. The threat of mosquito-borne illness like Triple E and West Nile continues to be a concern for many citizens, but equally, other residents are concerned with the chemicals and mass spraying against mosquitoes in our community. How do you balance these two health needs, and what are your thoughts on mosquito control in Burlington?
It's very interesting, and it's very controversial. First, Burlington is lowlands, wetlands. We have stagnant bodies of water, and that means mosquitoes. They are a nuisance. They are vectors. They spread in Massachusetts, Eastern equine encephalitis, West Nile virus. And not only that, there are ticks growing in population in Burlington. We have the Eastern Middlesex Mosquito Control Project that we utilize. We helicopter spray in this town with a bacteria, a bacillus that kills the larvae. We have catch basins. In every catch basin, we have material that cuts down on the larvae in this community. We have truck-mounted spraying with mosquito trap surveillance. The plan is highly regulated. And we don't have West Nile virus in this town. We don't have Eastern equine encephalitis in Burlington. And the materials we use are very non-toxic. They're very non-toxic. In fact, they're even found in many of the mosquito repellents. Many of the clothes that we can now buy, they're called pyrethrins. And pyrethrins are sourced in the chrysanthemum plant. They're very, very non-toxic. Now, if you don't want to be sprayed in this town, if you're worried about that town, well, you can opt out of the program. But that also is another issue. There are so many companies around that will spray your property that you can pay them to spray your property, but that causes other issues. Why? Because we have a large group of people who raise bees for honey in Burlington, and the unrestricted, the unregulated spraying of these materials kill the bee population. We're going to hold in 2 weeks. We're going to hold a forum on mosquito spraying and the beekeepers of Burlington. So it's a complicated issue. We want to protect everybody. We want to make sure that people who are allergic and can't tolerate pyrethrins are safe. But we also want to protect the most important insects in our community, and those are bees. And bees are so important in our agriculture and our food source.
Great. Last question. While Burlington continues to attract businesses to our town, including biotech companies, how will you work to ensure that companies properly dispose of biotech chemicals from the building proposal to the building creation to years from now?
Well, biotechnology, our company is quickly changing. It is clear that Burlington is becoming a hub for science and biotechnology. Although there are 20 federal and state agencies who work together to ensure safety of all of these chemicals, most important is the Burlington Board of Health. We've put together a program where we are vigilant in protecting this community. To your question, we have created a comprehensive regulation in 2020, integrating our earlier recombinant DNA requirements. We review every company and every aspect of that company, every health institution, every academic research laboratory in this community to make sure that everything is handled correctly and disposed of correctly. As a member of the board and a member of this board, we also allow and also have a community representative on every single company's IBC, their institutional review committee, which not only regulates, not only sits and takes part in what every one of these companies do, but also watches for this community. And last and most important, as a member of the Board of Health and as chairman, I'm committed in continuously providing oversight and transparency and safety of our town. We watch every single one of these biotechnologies for appropriateness and safety.
Okay. Thank you. And now you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
As an experienced leader, member, and chairman of our Board of Health, I've worked to maintain, update, and improve public health within this town. I have visibly worked to bring new and innovative technology to this community. I've looked at development and redevelopment and provided expertise in this area of biotechnology and away from the memories of our pandemic. You've all seen my commitment, my visibility, my track record of making Burlington a better place to live. I've kept all my promises, keeping this town safe and well, making public health a necessary priority. Through regulation, inspection, and innovative solutions, I have helped this community, cleaning a once highly contaminated town and ensuring that this will never happen again, providing programming and resources, health, clinics, education, and even the handling of household hazardous materials, as you saw yesterday. Developing and now recognized for its excellence, the Burlington Volunteer Reserve Corps has been put together and ready for all types of emergencies, a necessary public health program, a group that I helped found. And most of all, I have provided and will continue to provide future success, safety, wellness to our town of Burlington. 3 decades of service, a doctoral level scientist, 3 decades of public health experience, and one of the most active leaders within this community. I ask for one of your votes in the next election. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Janice Cohen for 1 minute for her opening statement.
I'd like to thank the Democratic Town Committee for sponsoring this forum. I would also like to tell the residents of Burlington a bit about me. I have worked to help others for much of my adult life. As a middle school science teacher, I spent many hours developing creative, engaging lessons, often modifying the presentation of these lessons to make the content accessible to those who learned differently. Since leaving teaching, I have worked with families and school districts, helping parents navigate the special ed process so that their children could receive the needed services and accommodations in order to thrive. I have spent many years visiting family members in both assisted living facilities as well as nursing homes where my 101-year-old mom lives. I have listened to their concerns and attempted to enrich their lives by creating a library for them and donating equipment to the physical therapy room at the nursing home. I have listened and advocated for others in the past and will continue to do so on the Board of Health. I am looking forward to serving you and humbly ask for your vote and support on April 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. The pandemic has been tough on so many of our youngest residents with a sharp increase in mental health concerns, including depression, anxiety, and even suicidal ideation, just to name a few. In your capacity as a Board of Health member, how would you advocate for a unified mental health solution for our youngest residents, ensuring that different departments are not working in silos?
Thank you for that question, Chris. I think that the Board of Health has done some great things through their programs in the psychological first aid course and suicide prevention. I also believe the Board of Health could be working with the schools to identify those students who are coming from non-English speaking families and offering those families material in their native language to help them prepare their children and cope with the challenges that the COVID or any other future COVID epidemic could bring. Those people, the non-English speaking community, are typically left on the outskirts and have a difficult time in accessing the services that are available. So I believe in working with the schools to identify who those families are and helping to provide the proper materials in their native language to address that group.
Unfortunately, in today's political world, there is trusted science and opinion science. And as we've learned over the pandemic, science can change based on new information. How do you evaluate what science to trust?
I think we have to look at the data that's coming out from reliable sources. For example, Deer Island is measuring COVID in wastewater before it will even appear in the community. That has shown to be a very reliable, predictable source of information. That is one place to look. We can also look at the hard data in the hospitals. How many people are sick with COVID in the hospitals? The number of people who unfortunately may not be surviving and may be dying because of COVID coming out, the data coming out of the hospitals, that is close to home, that is trusted, that is reliable data. Also, we have transmission rate in the communities that we can look at, and we can track the rate of transmission. It has been tracked, the rate of transmission in the communities, and that is also reliable. That is also reliable data. Data that is coming from scientific sources, from scientists, from medical professionals, I believe is the trusted data that we should be looking at.
Thank you. The Burlington water quality and the presence of PFAS in our water continues to be a great health concern for many Burlington families and residents. In your capacity as a Board of Health member, how do you address the issue of water quality?
The Department of Public Health is the agency in town that monitors our drinking water. The Board of Health has some separate and distinct roles regarding that. To put it simply, the Department of Public Health is in charge of testing the water that comes out of the ground before it goes into the faucets of our homes. The Board of Health will monitor water going into the ground to make sure that pollutants are not seeping into the ground and reaching our groundwater. The town is in the process of connecting up to the MWRA in order to have a reliable source of drinking water. The Board of Health regulates the discharge of stormwater runoff, discharge into the ground. And another way the Board of Health monitors the water is the proper handling of stormwater from construction projects. PFAS is everywhere. It is not just in the water, it is in the air that we breathe. It's everywhere. And we all have the PFAS in our bodies now. But the Department of Public Health is trying to actively to control this. They're building a new filter to take it out of the water and hooking up to the MWRA.
The threat of mosquito-borne illness like Triple E in West Nile continues to be a concern for many citizens, but equally other residents are concerned with the chemicals and mass spraying against mosquitoes in our community. How do you balance these two health needs, and what are your thoughts on mosquito control in Burlington?
Burlington is part of the East Middlesex Mosquito Control Project and has been for many years. The chemical that they are using, first of all, is a very safe chemical. In fact, this is the same chemical that is in flea and tick treatments that are used in dogs and puppies. In dogs and puppies, this chemical is used in much higher concentrations, and dogs and puppies are not being hurt by it. So it is certainly safe. It is also being sprayed at night in much smaller concentrations when honeybees, for example, are not active. So it's not affecting the honeybees. When the sun comes out, this chemical is quickly dissipated into the air. So it is not still active in the air. This is one of the safest chemicals. It does not harm birds. It does not harm mammals. It does not harm fish. It's not sprayed near bodies of water. It does not harm the bees, so it is very safe. And if people do not wish to have their home sprayed, then they can request for their yard to be not to have the truck on when when it goes by their house.
While Burlington continues to attract businesses to our town, including biotech companies, how will you work to ensure that companies properly dispose of biotech chemicals from the building proposal to the building creation to years from now?
So Burlington was very fortunate in 2019 and 2020. They worked with many other boards in town, and including the select board, town meeting, citizens in town, and they enacted the biological safety regulations in the beginning of 2020, which will govern all of these businesses coming in to make sure that there are not the hazardous materials going into the ground or going into the air. In fact, this safety is of the highest level that they have actually, the Biotechnology Council has actually upgraded to platinum Burlington's rating regarding these chemicals. So Burlington is currently following all of the safety regulations and will continue to do so.
Great. Thank you. So now you have your closing statement.
Thank you, Chris, and the Democratic Town Committee for giving us this opportunity to speak to the voters of Burlington. This campaign began for me nearly 3 months ago when I took out nomination papers to be on the Board of Health. I immediately began preparing to take a seat on the board by watching all scheduled meetings, including meetings held earlier in the year. I met with Director Susan Luminello and Associate Director Michael Green to find out the important issues facing the board from their perspective. I began familiarizing myself with the many regulations of the board, as well as reading sections of the annual town reports that highlighted accomplishments of the Board of Health. Most importantly, I began knocking on many doors in town and listened to many of you express your thoughts and concerns about the Board of Health and what they could do. I believe in preserving the environment in town. In that regard, I believe in renewable energy and am concerned with the adverse effects that climate change brings. I act on my beliefs, which is why my husband and I drive hybrid cars and produce much of our own electricity with the solar panels on our roof. I support the many preventative programs that the Board of Health has run. I am looking to expand the outreach of the board by identifying those families for whom English is not their primary language and working to bring them information about the many programs that are offered by the board. I would like to expand the preventative programs by bringing Mass Healthy Smiles to town to reach those children without dental care. I believe that listening and responding to questions and concerns is an essential skill one should have when they wish to serve on the Board of Health or any elected board. Any votes I take will be for the health and well-being of all in town. I will be sure to continue listening, examining data, and will vote based on facts. I will encourage people to reach out to me with their concerns and suggestions for new programs that the board may become involved in. I will be prepared for all meetings and will continue to assist the Board of Health in monitoring all regulations, including stormwater and biotechnology regulations. If elected, I vow to come to each Board of Health meeting prepared. I have the time to devote to all issues that will face the Board of Health. I thank you in advance for your vote on April 9th.
Thank you. And next, we're going to turn it over to Gail Demore. Gail, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone who's here. Thank you to the Democratic Board Committee for having us and for us to be able to share our point of views out there further. So a little bit about me. I have been a resident here since 2001. My husband owns his own business here, and I have 2 children going through Burlington High School. Running for the Board of Health just seemed like a logical step for me forward, in that I want to be able to continue serving our community in a broader capacity. I am currently a town meeting member on Precinct 6. I have been since 2019. And before that, I had worked with a small subcommittee through the school board with Kristen Russo to strategize and implement the development of the elementary health ed program here in Burlington. Over the years, I have been involved in the community through many different ways, simply volunteering at the elementary schools, working on the sidelines at sports events, neighborhood things, and also fundraising for various things throughout the schools. Professionally, I am a health educator at North Reading Middle School. I have been there for the last 14 years. I have a master's in education, and I am a member of the Community Impact Team, which Youth Substance Use Prevention Coalition in North Reading. The coalition partners with schools, police, parenting associations, and the Board of Health in North Reading to help support the at-youth risks. I have experience working across different levels of community in North Reading, and I would like to be able to do that here in Burlington. Recently, I earned a teacher leadership certificate from Salem State, which has allowed me to transition from being a great individual contributor at my school to becoming more of a team leader in a professional manner in a larger capacity. I think this will help me bring a fresh perspective to the Board of Health in Burlington. I would like the opportunity to collaborate with the current board members, continue to thrive as we move away from the pandemic, and see what fits into the realm of our responsibilities that the Board of Health is charged with.
Thank you. The pandemic has been tough on so many of our youngest residents, with a sharp increase in mental health concerns, including depression, anxiety, and even suicidal ideation, just to name a few. In your capacity as a Board of Health member, how would you advocate for a unified mental health solution for our youngest residents, ensuring that different departments are not working in silos?
I think one of the biggest things that my platform has been, that I've talked about in the past, is communication across all the boards so that we're not working within silos. I know that takes a lot of work and effort, but I think that's the job and our duty as serving the town, to make sure that we're not working in silos and that we have a better understanding of when one board makes a decision, how does it affect the other board's decision making. I do work within a middle school in North Reading here in Massachusetts, and part of that mental health, social emotional learning is right up my wheelhouse. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade health, and I'm working and seeing what's happening in the schools firsthand. I work with guidance counselors to get a better understanding of how to handle certain situations, but I also think bringing it back to Burlington and being able to work collaboratively with amongst the other boards, specifically the school committee, and having a better understanding of what's needed here would be what would be my focus.
Great. Unfortunately, in today's political world, there is trusted science and opinion science. And as we've learned over the pandemic, science can change based on new information. How do you evaluate what science to trust?
I think that we have to trust information coming from doctors, from medical facilities, having a better understanding of what the transmission rates are. Although they're still there, they're lower than they have been in the past. So looking at medical sources, doctors, hospitals, trying to navigate through actual factual data versus fake news, what is out there. We are all aware of the media, no offense to anyone who's here from the media, but sometimes they hyper make things a little bit worse than they really are. So we have to kind of navigate and trust what's out there.
Great. The Burlington water quality and the presence of PFAS in our water continues to be a great health concern for many Burlington families and residents. In your capacity as a Board of Health member, how would you address the issue of water quality?
I think that we have to work together with the different boards, but again, getting a better understanding of what the Board of Health role is. I know that they have distinct roles within the issue here. It seems like they're more looking at the pollutants within the water and how to best address those, but also understanding the Department of Public Works and how they are tying into the NRWA and where that's all going to come together for a better solution for our town. I think getting the awareness out there to the residents now and letting them know what can we do until we are hooked up is important. There's different solutions. I mean, bottled water is only one solution from what I understand, but it's, again, getting a better understanding of where we stand and what's happening.
Great. The threat of mosquito-borne illness like Triple E and West Nile continues to be a concern for many citizens, but equally other residents are concerned with the chemicals in mass spraying against mosquitoes in our community. How do you balance these two health needs, and what are your thoughts on mosquito control in Burlington?
Mosquito control has always been a personal interest of mine. My home property is surrounded by conservation wetlands. So I'm always mindful of whatever we're using within the community, but also within my own yard. I like that we have the choice to be part of the program for the spraying or not, but I also think it's important to look at it as a community, because when one person has an issue with mosquitoes or standing water, it does affect the people around them. So we have to look at the actions of the people around us as well. If being aware of where the beekeepers are would help navigate where we can and can't spray. I think it's just the awareness that the spraying is happening, when is it happening, being able to keep it at a safe level because we're already doing it, but is there something more that community members need? And that's something that we need to look further into.
While Burlington continues to attract businesses to our town, including biotech companies, how will you work to ensure that companies properly dispose of biotech chemicals from building proposal to building creation and move-in, and then from years from now?
I think it's important to continue with the regulations and following up on that and being able to be aware of what's happening now, but also track and see where it goes. Obviously, I think the Board of Health is involved in helping to regulate that things are happening in a proper manner. And I think I could work collaboratively with the current board members to be able to ensure that that continues.
And now you have your closing statement.
I would like to thank Chris and the Democratic Committee for having us again. This is a great opportunity for all of us to be able to share more about us. I have been involved with the community for many years in many different ways, and I am ready to take it to a broader sense to serve our community. I see myself stepping in and working together with the current board members to continue the good work that the board already accomplishes year to year. In the wake of the pandemic, I will take the time to understand and look at our community's needs now and help move us forward. I always have been interested in the Board of Health. I've been following them for years. I've read their meeting minutes before they were live, before we had pre-pandemic BCAT live meetings and all of that. It's somewhat of a learning curve, but also my professional wheelhouse encompasses some of the responsibility the board covers already. I think I could bring a fresh perspective to the board, and I would like to serve the town's youth as well as the seniors to see what happens with the social emotional learning that we see play out after this pandemic. Having a public awareness of what is going on at our state level politics, I would work hard to reinstate or restore any budget cuts angled towards our seniors. I would look at advocating for our seniors, and I would like to restore any losses that may come about. A scope of responsibilities with the board encompasses a lot. And I do think that there's some things that I'm already really well versed in, but there's always going to be that learning curve for someone who comes on in new. And I'm ready to take on the challenge. I'm ready to do the work to be an effective board member. I hope that I would also encourage people to get involved within the Board of Health. We have a volunteer reserve corps, and there's a lot of outsourcing resources available to the community educationally for themselves, but also to share as we muddle through the aftermath of the pandemic. If I am elected, I will strive to uphold the mission of protecting, promoting, and preparing our community for whatever is brought up before us. I respectfully ask for one of your 2 votes on April 9th during the election. Thank you.
So on behalf of the Burlington Democratic Town Committee, I want to thank all the candidates who are here today and took the time to speak to you as voters and speak towards us. All politics is local, and the decision that these boards make and the many boards in our town make affect our daily lives. The involvement of these board members really are a big impact on what the day-to-day of Burlington has to happen. Every vote counts, so please make sure to get out to vote. Bring your families, bring your neighbors. Make sure that you have the opportunity to have your voice here on these boards and the other seats that are present here in town. So we want to thank you all, the candidates, for being here. Thank you for your participation, and have a great rest of your day.